What if one man decided that the rules of reality simply didn't apply to him? Imagine this. You're a kid. You're awkward. You're quiet. You read encyclopedias for fun. The other kids at school beat you up, not once, not twice, but regularly. Brutally. And yet, something inside you is already building a different world. A better one. Fast forward 30 years. That same kid is now worth hundreds of billions of dollars. He's built the most valuable car company on Earth. He's sending rockets to space, rockets that actually land themselves back on the ground, like something out of a science fiction movie. He's tunneling under cities, wiring human brains to computers, and beaming internet from orbit to the most remote corners of the planet. And he's not done. He wants to put 1 million people on Mars. His name is Elon Musk. And this is his story. But before we get to the rockets, the billions, and the controversies, we need to go back to a small apartment in Pretoria, South Africa, where a painfully shy, deeply strange little boy was reading his way through every book he could find. Because what happened in that childhood, the loneliness, the pain, the obsession, that's where everything started. June 28, 1971. Pretoria, South Africa. Elon Musk is born into a world that has no idea what to do with him. His father, Elon Musk, is a successful engineer and property developer. His mother, May, is a model and dietitian, later one of the oldest models to ever appear on the cover of Time magazine. On paper, it sounds like a privileged, comfortable life. But behind the walls of that house, things were complicated. His parents' marriage was turbulent. And young Elon, sensitive, introverted, living almost entirely inside his head, struggled to navigate the emotional chaos around him. His father would later be described as, in Elon's own words, a terrible human being. But even that darkness couldn't stop what was growing inside the boy. From the very beginning, he was wired differently. While other kids played outside, Elon devoured books. Not children's books, encyclopedias. The entire Britannica set. He read it cover to cover. When that wasn't enough, he moved on to science fiction. Asimov, Heinlein, Clarke. Books about space, technology, civilizations rising and falling across the stars. He later said that by the time he was around 9 or 10, he had run out of books to read at the local library. So they gave him a library card for the adult section. The kid was a sponge. And his mind never stopped working. When he was around 10 years old, his father bought him a Commodore VIC-20 home computer. It came with a manual that was supposed to take 6 months to learn. He finished it in 3 days. He was obsessed. He taught himself to code, not from a teacher, not from a class, just from sheer relentless self-teaching. And at the age of 12, he did something that most adults never managed to do. He built a video game. From scratch. And sold it. The game was called Blaster, a space shooter where you had to destroy an alien ship carrying deadly hydrogen bombs. He sold the code to a computer magazine called PC and Office Technology for approximately $500. 12 years old. $500. And the first seeds of an empire had been planted. But school was a different story. He was not popular, not by a long shot. He was small for his age, academically obsessed, and socially awkward, the kind of kid who would correct teachers in front of the class or launch into a 15-minute explanation about quantum physics when someone asked a simple question. The other kids didn't like that. The bullying was severe. And we're not talking about name-calling or being left out at lunch. At one point, a group of boys threw him down a flight of concrete stairs. He was hospitalized. He later said his face was so swollen he was unrecognizable. This happened multiple times throughout his school years. And here is where the story becomes something deeper than just a success story. Because he didn't break. He retreated inward. And in that inner world, that private universe of books and code and ideas, he built something unbreakable. Some psychologists who have studied him believe he may be on the autism spectrum. He has discussed this publicly, describing how social interactions never came naturally to him, how he always felt slightly outside the normal frequency of human connection. But that same wiring that made him a target in the schoolyard was also making him extraordinary. While other kids were thinking about weekends, he was thinking about the future of the human species. And increasingly, he was becoming convinced that South Africa was not big enough to hold his ambitions. By the time Elon was a teenager, he had one destination in mind: America, not necessarily for the lifestyle. Not for Hollywood or the beaches or the American dream in the romantic sense. For Silicon Valley. For the place where people were turning ideas into reality at a speed the rest of the world hadn't caught up with yet. But getting there wasn't straightforward. His father, Errol, refused to give him money for a plane ticket to the United States. So he used his mother's Canadian heritage to get a Canadian passport instead. At 17 years old, he packed a bag, said goodbye to South Africa, and got on a plane. Alone. With almost no money. Heading into the unknown. Most people would have turned back. Elon Musk hadn't even flinched. He arrived in Canada in 1989. He had cousins somewhere in the country, but the address he had turned out to be for a relative who had moved away. He ended up sleeping in a youth hostel. Over the next year, he bounced around Canada, working whatever jobs he could find, cleaning boilers at a lumber mill for $18 an hour, which he described as one of the worst jobs imaginable. Shoveling grain. Working farms. Not exactly the Silicon Valley dream. But he was building something invisible: resilience. The ability to endure discomfort without giving up. Eventually, he enrolled at Queen's University in Ontario. And then, in 1992, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, one of the most prestigious universities in the United States. He studied economics and physics. Both. Simultaneously. Because apparently one degree wasn't enough to contain what was going on in his head. His economics thesis explored what he believed would be the most important industries of the future. His conclusion: three things: the internet, clean energy, and space. He was 22 years old. He had just described the next 30 years of his life. What he did next would change the tech industry forever. After graduating, he moved to California. He was accepted into a PhD program at Stanford University, one of the most competitive in the world, to study energy physics. He lasted 2 days. Because in the summer of 1995, the internet was exploding. The dot-com boom was beginning. And Elon Musk could see exactly where it was going, and he wasn't going to sit in a classroom while history was being made without him. He called Stanford, withdrew from the program, and went to build a company.
one of the craziest ones that we did invest in was Elon's SpaceX company back in 2008, which at the time, there were a number of investors who emailed us and told us they were glad never to have invested in Founders Fund, because anyone who invested in something as crazy as a rocket company shouldn't be in venture capital. And so, when you actually drill down on SpaceX in '08, they already had $500 million of contracts with NASA. They had lots of trials to get the rocket to work. There were a lot of things that were very good. It was not a crazy investment, but it might have looked that way. So I think great investments may look crazy, but really not be.
1995, San Jose, California. Elon and his younger brother Kimball pooled together approximately $28,000, which, honestly, barely covered rent in Silicon Valley. They rented a tiny office. They couldn't afford an apartment, so they slept on beanbags and showered at the YMCA down the street. The company was called Zip2. The idea was deceptively simple: help newspapers put their content online, with local business directories and maps. This sounds completely unremarkable today. In 1995, it was the cutting edge. Remember, this was before Google Maps, Yelp, and any of the digital navigation tools we take for granted. He was building the foundation before anyone else knew the house was coming. Zip2 struggled at first. Getting traditional media companies to trust the internet was like convincing people to trust electricity in 1890. But Elon was relentless. He worked 20-hour days. He slept under his desk. He coded, pitched, cold-called. Slowly, it started to work. The New York Times, Knight Ridder. Major newspaper chains began signing on. Zip2 grew. And in 1999, just 4 years after sleeping on those beanbags, Compaq acquired Zip2 for $307 million. Elon Musk's share: $22 million. He was 27 years old. But here's the thing about him that you need to understand. He didn't take that money and buy a yacht. He didn't disappear to a beach somewhere. He immediately started his next company. The new idea was called X.com, an online financial services company. The concept was radical for 1999, a fully internet-based bank. No physical branches. No physical checks. He invested $10 million of his own money into it. Half of everything he had. He later said, "I thought it was more likely to fail than succeed. But I couldn't not do it." That sentence tells you everything you need to know about Elon Musk. He knew it might fail. He did it anyway. Because the alternative, standing still, playing it safe, was simply not in his DNA. X.com merged with a competing payment startup called Confinity, founded by a group that included a sharp, intense young man named Peter Thiel. That merged company, you know it as PayPal. There were conflicts. There were boardroom battles. Elon was actually ousted as CEO while he was on his honeymoon, a move that stung deeply. But he retained his shares. And in 2002, when eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion, Elon Musk walked away with $180 million. He was 30 years old. And this is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Because most people in his position would have stopped, retired, and considered themselves done. Elon Musk looked at $180 million and decided to gamble it all.
In 2002. Elon Musk is 30 years old. He has $180 million in his bank account. He has 2 successful exits. He has the respect of Silicon Valley. He sits down. And he thinks about what matters most to him. What he actually cares about. What, if it didn't happen, would be the greatest loss to the human species? His answer surprises people who don't know him well, but not at all to anyone who does. He decides that making humanity a multiplanetary species is the single most important thing he could possibly work on. Not because it's profitable and fashionable, but because he genuinely believes that if something happens to Earth, an asteroid, a pandemic, a nuclear war, a slow civilizational collapse, the human species needs a backup plan. He calls it an insurance policy for consciousness itself. He tried, first, to buy a Russian ICBM rocket to repurpose for a Mars mission. He flew to Moscow 3 times. The Russians laughed at him. One of them spat on the floor. On the flight home, furious and humiliated, Elon opened his laptop and started building a spreadsheet. Could he build a rocket himself? He crunched the numbers. The raw materials for a rocket are maybe 3% of the cost of a finished rocket from traditional aerospace companies. Which meant the prices were being inflated beyond reason, not because rockets were hard to build, but because nobody had ever seriously tried to do it cheaply. He called Gwynne Shotwell, a brilliant aerospace engineer. He called Tom Mueller, a rocket propulsion genius. He called a handful of other visionaries. In 2002, he founded Space Exploration Technologies Corporation. The world knows it as SpaceX. And barely a year later, almost as a side project, he co-founded a little electric car company. Tesla Motors. Yes, he was running a rocket company and an electric car company simultaneously, from scratch, at the same time. His friends staged what they described as an intervention. Elon, this is insane. You'll lose everything. Electric cars have been tried and failed. Nobody can compete with NASA. You're throwing your money away. He listened carefully. And then he did it anyway. The next 6 years were brutal. SpaceX launched its first rocket, the Falcon 1, in 2006. It exploded 25 seconds after liftoff. They launched again in 2007. It made it to space this time, but a fuel slosh issue caused the second stage to fail. They launched again in 2008. The first and second stages collided during separation. 3 satellites, including 1 NASA payload, were destroyed. 3 catastrophic failures. The money was running out. Meanwhile, Tesla was hemorrhaging cash. The first Roadster was years behind schedule. Costs were spiraling. Investors were nervous. And then 2008 arrived like a freight train. The global financial crisis hit. Investment dried up. The economy cratered. Elon's personal wealth, nearly everything he had, was tied up in SpaceX and Tesla. He was weeks away from both companies going bankrupt simultaneously. He had 1 rocket left. 1 more attempt. If this failed, SpaceX was done. Tesla was done. The dream of electric cars and colonizing Mars would die together in the California desert. He was borrowing money from friends just to pay his rent. He later told reporters that when he said he was putting everything into these companies, he meant it literally. He had invested $100 million of his own money into SpaceX. $70 million into Tesla. He was broke. His first marriage ended. He was reportedly sleeping on friends' couches. And he was still going into the office every single day.
September 28, 2008. The 4th Falcon 1 rocket sits on its launch pad on Omelek Island in the Pacific Ocean. The entire SpaceX team is gathered around computer crack open. He cries. Later, he told the team, "As God is my bloody witness, I am hell-bent on making it work." He already had. Within weeks, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract to resupply. On December 3, 2008, Tesla secured a critical funding round that kept it alive, with minutes to spare. both companies survived. By the skin of their teeth. By the sheer refusal of one man to quit. What happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. Tesla launched the Model S in 2012. The critics, who had been merciless, were silenced overnight. Consumer Reports called it the best car they had ever tested. Not the best electric car. The best car. Period. Then the Model 3 arrived. The Model X. The Model Y. Tesla's market capitalization soared past Toyota, past Volkswagen, past every traditional automaker on the planet. Elon Musk became the world's richest person. Meanwhile, SpaceX was rewriting the history of spaceflight. In 2015, the Falcon 9 booster made history by landing itself back on a drone ship in the middle of the ocean. Something that every aerospace expert had previously said was physically impossible. The video of that landing went viral within hours. People watched it over and over. Rockets don't land. They don't just fly back to Earth and set themselves down on a floating platform. Except, now they did. And this is where the story takes another dramatic turn. Because Elon Musk wasn't done building. He was just getting started. By the 2020s, Elon Musk wasn't just running two world-changing companies. He was running 5. Neuralink. The goal is to merge the human brain with artificial intelligence. Not in a science fiction metaphorical sense, literally. Implanting tiny chips into the human skull that can read and write brain signals, allowing paralyzed people to control computers with their thoughts, and eventually, Musk hopes, letting humans keep pace with artificial intelligence by becoming part of it. In 2024, the first human patient received a Neuralink implant. Within weeks, he was playing chess on a computer using only his mind. Let that sink in. A paralyzed man. Playing chess. With his thoughts. Because Elon Musk decided the human brain was an engineering problem. The Boring Company. The pitch: traffic is terrible because we build in 2 dimensions. What if we went underground? What if you could travel across a major city in a tunnel at hundreds of miles per hour in an electric pod? Las Vegas already has a functioning Boring Company tunnel system under the convention center. Other cities are in various stages of planning. Starlink. SpaceX has launched thousands of small satellites into low Earth orbit, creating a global internet constellation. For the first time in history, people in the most remote corners of the planet, rainforests, mountain villages, open ocean, have fast, reliable broadband internet. Ukraine used Starlink to maintain military communications during the Russian invasion. It was, by many accounts, a deciding factor in their ability to coordinate their defense. A satellite internet network. Helping shape the outcome of a war. Built by a guy who couldn't get a table at a venture capital meeting 15 years earlier. And then, Twitter. In 2022, Elon Musk made headlines around the world by purchasing Twitter, one of the most influential social media platforms on the planet, for $44 billion. He called it a public square. He said free speech was under threat. He fired most of the staff on day 1. He renamed it X. He moved fast and broke things in a way that even Silicon Valley found shocking. The acquisition is still controversial. Some see it as a principled stand for open dialogue. Others see it as a billionaire using personal wealth to control a global information platform. What's undeniable is this: Elon Musk, once again, had done something that nobody else had the nerve, or the money, to attempt.
me to have American astronauts plant the flag on another planet for the first time?
Here's the truth that any honest documentary has to confront. Elon Musk is not universally beloved. Not even close. And the criticism isn't just from people who are jealous or ideologically opposed to him. Some of it comes from people who know him well. People who worked for him. People who watched what happens in the wake of his decisions. The workplace culture at Tesla and SpaceX has been described by former employees as brutal. Long hours, not just long, but punishing. High turnover. A culture where failure is not tolerated and the pace is set by a man who seems to run on 4 hours of sleep and pure adrenaline. Workers have tried to unionize at Tesla. Musk has pushed back forcefully. Labor advocates have pointed to injury rates and working conditions that concern them deeply. His public behavior on social media has been erratic, by almost any standard. He's made jokes about drugs, made promises about Tesla's capabilities that proved premature, manipulated cryptocurrency markets with offhand tweets, and made personnel decisions that shook entire industries. In 2018, he called a British cave diver involved in the Thailand cave rescue a pedo guy on Twitter, apparently because the man had criticized Musk's submarine rescue idea. He later apologized. The damage was done. When you give one person this much influence, over transportation, space, communications, social media, and the human brain, the stakes of their failures become civilizational. And that's not nothing. His political positioning has also shifted dramatically over the years, from someone broadly seen as a Silicon Valley progressive to someone who has aligned himself with increasingly controversial political figures and causes. Whether you see this as principled evolution or troubling drift depends entirely on where you stand. What's clear is that Elon Musk generates strong feelings. Devotion and fury in roughly equal measure. That is, perhaps, the inevitable consequence of being someone who refuses to stay in any lane. So how publicly mocked, always while operating at a pace that left the people around him gasping. Is he a hero? That depends on who you ask, and honestly, it depends on which day you ask them. Is he a genius? Almost certainly, by any practical definition of the word. Is he complicated, contradictory, sometimes reckless, sometimes visionary, occasionally infuriating? Absolutely. But here is perhaps the most important thing to understand about him. He changed the baseline of what humanity believes is possible. Before SpaceX, reusable rockets were a pipe dream. Before Tesla, electric cars were golf carts. Before Neuralink, brain-computer interfaces were science fiction. Before Starlink, global satellite internet was a fantasy. Now they are all real. All operational. All out there in the world, changing lives. Not because the universe decided to cooperate, but because one unusually strange, unusually driven human being refused to accept that the impossible was actually impossible.